This is a May Luna Media production.
I have always been told that I was too much. Too loud, too emotional, too passionate, too intense, too sexual, too opinionated, too independent, too motherfucking everything. And for a long time, I wore that like a scarlet letter, like the cosmic T stamped across my chest. I tried to shrink myself down into something more digestible, something softer, something nice. I became the good girl archetype in stilettos, performing safety for everybody else's comfort while quietly suffocating in my own skin. But here's the thing about trying to live small: the soul starts to rot when you ignore your own power. Like it hums underneath the surface like a trapped animal begging to be let out. And the longer you deny it, the uglier it starts to get. Like I spent years trying to manage that darkness, that rage, the desire, the chaos, like they were symptoms of something wrong with me. I went to therapy, I prayed, I manifested, I meditated, I raised my vibration. But what I didn't realize is that the vibration I was avoiding was the very frequency that held my power, the dark feminine. Like the dark feminine isn't evil. She's just honest. She's the part of you that doesn't play nice, the part of you that doesn't wait to be chosen, the part that bleeds and births and destroys so that something new can grow. She's the frequency of endings and beginnings, of seduction and sovereignty, of death and rebirth, and she scares the fuck out of people who have built their lives around control. So when I finally stopped apologizing for my too muchness and I started asking, what if this is my medicine? Something alchemized. I realized that every time somebody called me intense, what they were really saying was, I can't control the magnitude of your energy. Every time somebody said, you are too emotional, they meant you're willing to feel what I am afraid to face. And that is when it clicked. The world doesn't need you to be less. It just needs you to be real. And now when somebody calls me too much, I just smile and say, go fucking find less. Because here's the real secret: too much is the exact frequency that moves mountains. The universe itself was birthed from a violent explosion of energy, a literal big bang of chaos. Creation requires destruction. Light needs darkness to define it. And every fucking goddess worth her salt, from Kali to Lilith to Inanna, they've all been demonized, not because she was evil, but because she refused to be small. The dark feminine is not a villain. She is the original source code. She is nature in her wild form: hurricanes and blood moons, seduction and decay, rebirth and truth. She is the force that burns down the false self so that the authentic one can rise. And the reason so many people fear her, both men and women alike, by the way, is because she asks for radical accountability. You can't hide from her. You can't fucking bullshit her. She will gut your illusions and hand you your power back, whether you're ready for it or not. So let's set the record straight in this episode. We're going to dismantle the myth that dark feminine energy is dangerous or demonic. We're going to trace how religion and culture and science have pathologized feminine chaos as something to be controlled, and then show how modern neuroscience and quantum biology and psychology are finally catching up to what the mystics have always known. Your darkness isn't the opposite of your light. It is the doorway to it. And by the end of this, I want you to understand that your dark feminine, you know what? I don't want you to understand her. I want you to embody her. I want you to feel her pulse in your bones, to recognize the part of you that has been shamed and silenced or exiled. It is actually your most magnetic and creative and spiritually potent self. Because this isn't about becoming darker, it is about becoming whole. Hey, and welcome to Synaptic Soul, the podcast where science meets spirit, and we get real about the beautiful and brutal and magical mess of being human. I'm your host, Ava Marie Anderson, writer, mystic, multidimensional mischief maker. Quick disclaimer: you may hear the occasional snort, sigh, dramatic flop from my two French bulldogs, Rocky and Rambo. They're the soundtracks of my life, my soul companions, and honestly, the real stars of the show. Someday we'll dedicate a full episode to their role in my daily rituals, emotional healing, and wild spiritual life. But for now, just know that they're always close by, snoring their support. Let's dive in. Let's take a little time travel trip, shall we? Because before Lilith was a demon, and before was blamed for ruining paradise, and before women were burned at the stake for dancing naked under the moon, there was a time when the feminine was worshipped and not feared. So, thousands of years ago, before the patriarchy got its tight little grip on history, the Great Mother was the center of everything. The feminine was seen as sacred chaos, the source of life and death and regeneration. She wasn't like light or dark, she was both. So think of the ancient Sumerian goddess Inanna descending into the underworld, not because she was evil, but because transformation demanded it. And then think of Isis piecing Osiris back together, not out of fragility, but out of sheer creative force. Like the dark feminine was the original science of the soul. Ancient civilizations understood that creation was a cyclical process: birth, decay, death, and rebirth. And then it was the biology that mirrored through myth. The soil had to decompose for new life to grow, and the same principle applied to the psyche. And that's what shadow work actually is, by the way: decomposition of the false self so that the real one can rise. But somewhere along the way, we forgot about that. So when patriarchy took over, and let's be real, this isn't about man hating, this is about systems of control. That cyclical power terrified people who needed hierarchy to survive. Like, you can't dominate a woman who understands death is holy and darkness is sacred. You can't manipulate somebody who knows that she can birth worlds and burn illusions. So the story had to change. The feminine, once revered as creator and destroyer, got recast as temptress and witch and sinner. And then enter Lilith, the OG rebel. In early Hebrew mythology, Lilith was Adam's first wife. She refused to lay beneath him, literally and symbolically, saying, "We are equal because we were created from the same dust." And for that simple act of sovereignty, she was cast out, turned into a night demon, and written into the lore as a baby killing succubus. So, translation: patriarchy couldn't handle a woman who didn't obey, so they turned her into a monster. And thus began the myth of the dangerous woman, the one who knows her own power. And then fast forward to Eve. Her sin wasn't curiosity, it was consciousness. She ate from the tree of knowledge, woke the fuck up, and humanity hasn't stopped punishing her for it since. That story imprinted deep into our collective DNA. That feminine curiosity and sensuality and hunger for the truth are dangerous. And if you zoom out, that narrative has been playing on repeat ever fucking since. So every mystic woman, every sensual being, every witch and healer or intuitive who has dared to question the status quo has felt that ancestral echo. Be good, be small, be quiet. But here's the twist: you can't kill what's encoded into the fabric of creation. The dark feminine doesn't die, she evolves. She is the serpent shedding her skin, the phoenix burning down ash only to rise higher. She is every woman who has ever said no when it would have been easier to comply. She's every man who has ever dared to cry, every soul who has chosen authenticity over acceptance. She is the pulse beneath rebellion and revolution and rebirth. And if we look at this through a scientific lens, because you know I love me some quantum nerdiness, suppression of the feminine principle isn't just cultural, it is neurological. The right hemisphere of the brain, which governs intuition and emotion and creativity and holistic awareness, that has been collectively devalued for centuries in favor of the left hemisphere, which is logic and order and control and hierarchy. We have literally built a world that mirrors a lopsided brain. Like, patriarchal consciousness is the left brain running unchecked, terrified of the wild and the messy and the emotional intelligence of the right. That imbalance creates everything from burnout culture to religious fundamentalism. So, like, we're watching the nervous system of humanity short circuit from trying to live in perpetual daylight without honoring the night. So, when you feel your dark feminine stirring, like when rage bubbles up, or when you crave solitude, or when desire feels electric and untamed, you're not being crazy. You are recalibrating to cosmic equilibrium. You're remembering the original blueprints. And this is why feminine renaissance, like that whole thing that we're living through now, feels so intense. Like we're not just healing personal trauma, we are reprogramming millennia of shame lodged into our collective psyche. Like we're the generation remembering what was buried, and that remembering is messy. It's why so many of us feel like we're breaking down while we're waking up. Because truth isn't polite, and healing isn't cute, and reclamation is a fucking blood sport, baby. So, when people say dark feminine, I want you to hear deeply human. I want you to think of the part of nature that doesn't apologize for its cycles: the hurricane, the volcano, the menstrual bleed, the orgasm, the death that feeds life. There's no moral label there. It's just energy transforming. And maybe, just maybe, the reason that we have been taught to fear that darkness is because the moment you stop running from it, you stop being controllable. Let's talk about what actually happens when you suppress your power. And not metaphorically, I mean biologically. So every time you swallow your truth, or you ignore your intuition, or you shrink yourself to stay good, your nervous system takes the hit. Like your body isn't just a meat suit, it is an instrument of energy and information. When you repress emotion or power, you're not just keeping a secret, you are building internal pressure, like shaking a soda can and pretending that it's fine. And spoiler alert, it is not fine. So here's where science and spirituality start making out in the backseat. Like, your emotions are literally electrical signals. They are biochemical data packets sent through your nervous system to tell you what is true and what is safe and what is out of alignment. And when you ignore that data, when you override your gut with logic or spiritual bypassing, your body stores it. And that's why suppressed rage becomes autoimmune disease, why repressed grief becomes depression, why chronic people pleasing looks suspiciously like adrenal fatigue. Like your body will whisper and then it'll scream and then it'll shut the fuck down if you don't listen. So, neuroscience calls this neuroception, your body's ability to detect safety or threat beneath the conscious awareness. When your dark feminine energy is suppressed, your system perceives your own power as a threat. And that's the ultimate self betrayal loop. The same instincts that were designed to keep you safe from lions now go off every time you speak your truth, or you take up space, or you just say no. Like, you become addicted to cortisol and hypervigilance and control because your nervous system equates authenticity with danger. But here's the quantum twist: energy cannot be destroyed, it can only be transformed. Every bit of that suppressed emotion still exists inside your electromagnetic field, shaping your reality. And Dr. Joe Dispenza calls this firing and wiring. Your thoughts and your emotions create measurable energetic signatures that condition your body into a personality pattern. If you have been programmed to reject your power, your cells literally memorize that pattern. Your heart's electromagnetic field, which is 60 times stronger than the brain's, by the way, learns to control instead of expand. Like you stop radiating and you start surviving. The dark feminine asks you to reverse that. She doesn't want you to transcend your emotions, she wants you to alchemize them. Like rage isn't something to release, it is something to listen to. It's that red hot signal that says there is a boundary here that's been crossed. And grief isn't weakness, it's the evidence of love. And desire isn't sin, it is the compass of your soul pointing you toward your evolution. Every emotion that you have been told is bad is actually just raw creative data trying to move through your system. And when you block it, you block life force. Psychology backs this up, by the way. Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And that's shadow work in a nutshell: shining a light into your inner basement and realizing that the monsters were just abandoned children wearing your face. And trauma lives in the body, but so does alchemy. When you bring awareness to those hidden parts, you literally integrate neural pathways that were once dissociated. It's not metaphorical integration. It is neuroplasticity, baby. You are rewiring your brain toward wholeness. And yet, we live in a culture that worships the light, like positivity only, manifest high vibes, smile through your pain. It is the spiritual version of toxic masculinity, emotional bypassing dressed in sage smoke. And we've turned enlightenment into an aesthetic where, in truth, it's basically the real awakening feels like you're fucking dying sometimes. Because the dark feminine doesn't want your perfection, she wants your truth. And think about how nature operates. Forests don't resist wildfires, they need them. Like fire cracks open the pine cones so that the new trees can grow. The soil needs the ash. You are the same. So when your old identity burns, it is not punishment, it's photosynthesis for the soul. And the body knows how to heal if we stop getting in its way. So here's where I'm going to get a little quantum on you. The body isn't solid. It is 99.999% empty space, just filled with vibrating energy. Your emotions are frequency shifts within that field. So when you suppress an emotion, you trap energy at a certain vibrational density, and that's why it feels heavy. When you allow it and breathe through it and express it, the wave completes and the energy moves, and that's not woo. That is wave particle duality 101. You're literally collapsing probabilities through emotional permission. So every time you say I'm fine when you're not, you are creating resistance in your field. Every time you swallow your truth to stay light, you are a fracture to your coherence. And every time you finally scream and dance and cry and paint and move and fuck and pray and journal and howl, you become a little more electric, a little more whole, a little more alive. Like that is what embodiment is. The nervous system remembering that it is safe to hold power again. And this is why the dark feminine isn't some aesthetic or trend. She is medicine. She is the physiological antidote to suppression culture. When you reclaim her, your heartbeat synchronizes with the pulse of creation. Your brain starts to produce different neurochemicals, and you literally emit more measurable light, biophotons, and then you go from burnout to bioluminescence. So, no, dark feminine energy isn't evil. She's just the half of you that science forgot to measure and religion told you to fear. And she's ready to come home through your body. This episode is supported in part by Sage App, aka the app that's basically a metaphysical multivitamin. It's like having a spiritual sanctuary in your pocket minus the incense smoke in your purse. It's also where I host my new moon manifestation clubs, which, if you know, we go deep. So if you're ready to stop doom scrolling and start soul scrolling, download Sage in the App Store or Google Play and then step into a more intentional, magical version of your day. That's SAGED, like Sage, but with an app. Back to the episode. Every myth worth remembering starts with a descent. Inanna hung herself on the hook in the underworld. Persephone got pulled into the dark and found her sovereignty there. Even Jesus went into the tomb before resurrection. There's no bypassing the dark if you want to embody the light. The descent isn't punishment. It's a metamorphosis. So, when we talk about working with the dark feminine, we're not summoning some external entity in red lipstick with serpents around her hips, although if that is your vibe, bless it. We are talking about what happens when you finally stop running from the parts of yourself that terrify you. Your rage, your jealousy, your shame, your hunger, your grief, your desire, your judgment, and your truth. The dark feminine is not outside of you. She is you when you stop performing for safety. And descent work begins like the moment you stop pretending. That moment when you whisper, I can't keep doing this, the job that drains you, the relationship that dims you, the identity that no longer fits. The descent is in the unraveling of the false self. And baby, it is not glamorous. It's panic attacks and solitude and crying on the bathroom floor with mascara running down your face, wondering who the hell you are now that you've stopped being who everybody else wanted you to be. But in that breakdown is something sacred because When everything you thought you were burns to the ground, what is left is the truth. You start to see that your darkness wasn't the enemy, it was the unacknowledged brilliance you exiled in order to belong. And here's the secret: the dark feminine doesn't give a fuck about your affirmations. Like, she doesn't care about your embodiment. She doesn't want you to chant, I am powerful. She wants you to feel your power moving through your body like molten honey. She wants you to unclench your jaw and scream and cry so deeply that your chest cracks open. She wants you to dance like the moon is watching. Like, she is chaos medicine. From a psychological lens, this is the process of shadow integration. So Jung called it meeting the dragon at the threshold. Like, you don't slay it, you become it. Because the dragon isn't evil, it's the guardian of your gold. Like, everything that you repress gains power over you, and everything that you integrate becomes power for you. And shadow work is simply learning how to hold paradox without collapsing, to say, I can be sacred and messy. I can be angry and loving. I can be sexual and spiritual all at once. That is the wholeness. So when you descend, you enter what mystics call the liminal space, the in between. It's the cocoon stage, the part where the caterpillar turns to mush before becoming a butterfly. And it's dark and it's confusing, but it's also essential. And in neuroscience, this phase is called neuroplastic reorganization. Your brain literally dissolves old neural networks and builds new ones. And spiritually, it feels like death, and biologically, it's just rebirth. So, what do you do when you're in the underworld? Well, you stop trying to get out. Like, you breathe and you listen and you get curious about what the dark is teaching you. That anxiety that you keep medicating might be your intuition screaming that something is off. Or that anger that you keep apologizing for might be the sacred fuel asking to burn away complacency. That desire that you keep shaming might be the compass pointing you toward your divine purpose. Like, you can't think your way through a descent. You have to feel your way through it. That means embodiment practices, movement, breath work, screaming in your car, shaking it out, journaling the ugliest thoughts without censoring them. It means ritual, lighting a candle not to summon help, but to honor the part of you that's dying. It means calling back your power, literally saying out loud, I reclaim every fucking fragment of myself that I abandoned to be loved. And because we love a little science around here, let's talk about what's happening under the hood when you do this. When you stop suppressing emotion and you let yourself feel it, your vagus nerve, that highway of your parasympathetic nervous system, activates. That is your body's built-in brake pedestal. That is the or brake pedal. That's the one that signals we're safe now. Your heart rate slows, your digestion returns, your brain starts producing oxytocin and serotonin instead of cortisol and adrenaline. And that chemistry of suppression gives way to the chemistry of surrender. And that's the irony. The more you let yourself descend, the more your system heals. The dark feminine isn't here to destroy you. She's here to reset you. She wants to clear out every false structure, every should, every mask until you are naked in your truth. And from that raw, trembling place, you realize, oh, this is power. Not the performative kind, not the I'm fine kind, the real kind that doesn't need an audience. When Persephone finally emerged from the underworld, she wasn't a victim anymore. She was a queen. And that is what the descent does. It dethrones the victim and it enthrones the sovereign. You stop waiting to be saved and you realize that you are the fucking goddess. So when life drags you down, when relationships collapse and careers end and identities die, stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what is awakening in me? Because sometimes the dark feminine will wreck your life to save your soul. And that's not evil, babe. That is evolution. This episode is brought to you in part by one of my most favorite humans on this spinning planet, Morgan Garza, and her book Soul Magic. If you've ever felt like your power was just waiting beneath the surface, or like there's something ancient and electric inside of you ready to be reclaimed, then this is the book that helps you remember. Soul Magic is not just a read, it is a summoning. It's filled with rituals and stories and the kind of grounded spiritual wisdom that doesn't talk at you, it talks with you. Morgan writes like a soul sister, a cosmic cheerleader, and a priestess all rolled into one. And it's a must-have for anyone on the path of awakening, reclaiming. So grab your copy at morgangarza.com or wherever books are sold, or bless someone else's journey and gift it, because real magic's meant to be shared. That's Soul Magic by Morgan Garza. You'll feel it in your bones. Once you start to listen to the dark feminine, she doesn't come as a single voice. She shows up in archetypes, different expressions of the same primal force. Each one holds a key to the part of you that's been buried. These aren't just ancient goddesses with cool aesthetics, like they're blueprints for the psyche. They are the language of the unconscious trying to remind you who the fuck you are. So Lilith is your untamed truth. Lilith is that first feral breath you take when you realize that you don't owe anybody obedience. She is that raw no that got you exiled from other people's approval. And in the story, she refused to lie beneath Adam and was demonized for it. In the psyche, she's the part of you that refuses to stay small to be safe. So when you reclaim her, you stop apologizing for your sexuality and your autonomy and your rage and your pleasure. You stop outsourcing your validation and you stand in front of the mirror, meet your own gaze, and think, I am the standard. And when Lilith awakens in you, you'll feel it in your throat and your pelvis, the two most suppressed centers of feminine expression, really. You might start saying no more. Like you might start speaking things that make people uncomfortable. And that's because Lilith is liberation in motion. Like she's not evil, she's the nervous system remembering its freedom. And then you've got Kali, the sacred destroyer. Like if Lilith is rebellion, Kali is annihilation. Like she's the goddess with a necklace of skulls, blood on her tongue, and eyes of fire, not because she's violent, but because she devours illusion. Kali represents death of the false self. She'll burn down your ego and your excuses and smile while doing it. She's the storm that clears the field for new growth. And psychologically, Kali energy arises when the structures you've built can't hold your expansion anymore. Relationships end, jobs collapse, identities die, and it feels like chaos because it is. But if you can stop clinging and trust the destruction, you'll discover that it is pure mercy. In the brain, it looks like dismantling of the old neural pathways, a literal death of old conditioning. On a soul level, it's the dark feminine saying, I love you too much to let you live in your own cage. And then you've got Persephone, the initiate. Like Persephone's story has been rewritten for centuries as a tragedy. A sweet maiden kidnapped into the underworld, but what if she chose to go? Like, what if she understood that you can't be queen of the underworld if you've never walked through the dark? Persephone represents descent as initiation. She teaches that every ending is a sacred invitation. And in you, she's the part that can hold paradox, the part that learns to love both spring and shadow. She's your emotional intelligence, your ability to walk into your pain without getting stuck there. And when Persephone rises, she brings the fruits of the underworld with her, the wisdom and the empathy and the power that is rooted and not performative. She reminds you that your light without dark is hollow. And then you've got Medusa. She's the misunderstood guardian. Like Medusa wasn't born a monster. She was transformed after being violated and then blamed for her own trauma. Her story is the oldest narrative of feminine rage turned to stone. But let's flip that. What if her snakes were her sensory power, her intuition, and her hair was just alive with awareness? What if turning men to stone wasn't simply what happens when the patriarchal gaze meets embodied truth? Like, Medusa represents the part of you that has been shamed for being too angry. She is sacred rage personified, not the kind that destroys for fun, but the kind that protects what's holy. And when you embrace her, you stop letting people walk all over you and you start using your voice as a boundary. Neuroscience would call that activating the fight response healthily rather than repressing it. Spiritually, it's you reclaiming the guardian at the gates. And then we've got Hecate, the threshold keeper. Like, she's the goddess of the crossroads, torch in hand, watching the travelers between the worlds. She is the dark feminine in her mature form, wisdom and discernment and sovereignty. She doesn't chase, she doesn't rage, she knows. Like, Hecate lives in your intuition and that quiet, steady voice that says, turn left, wait, not yet. She represents integration, the stage after the descent, when you've met your shadows and can now guide others through theirs. You can feel her in your body as calm power, the nervous system regulated and clear. She's the spiritual and biological evidence that darkness, once embodied, becomes light that you can carry. When you start working with these archetypes, something wild happens. You stop fighting yourself. You realize that the same energy that breaks you open also heals you. And you start to see how every trauma response was a survival goddess trying to protect you. You stop demonizing your anger, your sexuality, your sadness, and then you start translating them as sacred language. And from a quantum perspective, that's coherence. When the conflicting frequencies inside you find, I don't know, synchronicity. The brain and the heart come into alignment. Your electromagnetic field becomes more organized, and you become magnetic as hell because the universe loves coherence. And that's why shadow integration isn't just therapy, it is manifestation medicine. Like, you can't attract wholeness from fragmentation. You can only magnetize what you embody. So, when you integrate your dark feminine, you stop chasing abundance or love or freedom, and then you become the frequency that these things naturally orbit. The dark feminine in all of her forms is simply the embodied truth that nothing in you is too much or too broken or too dark to be divine. She's the whisper in your bones saying, you were never meant to be saved. You were meant to be remembered. So, what do you actually do with all this? It is one thing to vibe with Lilith during a full moon playlist, and another to let her energy move through your Monday morning meeting or through your marriage. Integration is the part of the journey that turns revelation into reality. It's where mysticism meets muscle memory. Like, when you've descended and met your shadows and survived the death of who you used to be, the next initiation is ordinary life. The dark feminine wants to live in your breath and your posture and your bank account and your relationships. She wants to eat breakfast with you. She wants to walk your dog. She wants to sit beside you when you open your email and whisper, don't abandon yourself here. Integration starts in the body. Every spiritual truth you know must be digested through your nervous system or it just stays a concept. So you begin with awareness. Where do you tighten when you speak your truth? Where do you shrink when somebody disagrees? Like, those contractions are holy breadcrumbs. Breathe into them. Let your body know that it is safe to stay open. That is what embodiment actually means, staying present with sensation instead of fleeing into performance. And from a physiological view, that's vagal tone and regulation. So when you breathe deeply, or you hum, or you move, or you stimulate your vagus nerve, your body's built-in permission slip for safety activates. The more regulated your nervous system, the more capacity you have to hold power and pleasure and presence without dissociating. It is why embodiment work is not just indulgent, it is maintenance for your consciousness. And now, let's bring her into relationships. Like, the dark feminine doesn't tolerate half truths. She won't fake peace to keep the room comfortable. Integration here means communicating from truth instead of fear, saying, well, that doesn't feel aligned, instead of swallowing resentment. It's eye contact that says, I am here fully. It's holding your own gaze instead of begging to be seen. That level of honesty reorganizes the field around you, and it's going to cost you some people, but only the ones benefiting from your self betrayal. And in work and creativity, the dark feminine moves like the intuition. She's nonlinear. She doesn't clock in, she flows. And integration looks like trusting the pulse instead of the plan, letting the rest be part of the productivity, letting your ideas gestate instead of forcing them. And quantum biology calls this coherence again, alternating charge and discharge, inhale and exhale. You're no longer grinding, you're oscillating with the rhythm of creation. And sexuality, that's her playground. So when you embody the dark feminine, sex stops being for performance and becomes prayer. It's not about approval, it is about aliveness. Like pleasure becomes a language of devotion to yourself and to your partner and to existence itself. The nervous system reads genuine pleasure as safety, which, by the way, heals trauma faster than any affirmation ever could. Ecstasy is regulation. Desire is divine data. And spiritually, embodiment means that you stop chasing light and you just start radiating it. So the dark feminine teaches that enlightenment isn't rising above the human mess, it is bringing light down into it. Washing the dishes with reverence, paying the bills with gratitude, letting your tears be holy water. You become the bridge between heaven and earth because you're no longer at war with either. And yeah, integration also means boundaries. The dark feminine loves a no. Like she understands that boundaries aren't walls, they're tuning forks. They teach the world how to meet your frequency. And every time you enforce one, you refine your signal. Every time you choose rest over hustle and truth over pleasing and embodiment over escape, you broadcast coherence. And the universe listens. And from a collective standpoint, every individual who integrates their dark feminine contributes to the planetary rebalancing. Like we're healing thousands of years of suppression through our nervous systems. That is evolutionary biology in real time. So when a woman remembers her power, when a man reclaims his intuition, and when a non binary soul refuses to fragment to fit, the field shifts. The energy of the planet recalibrates toward wholeness. And here's the wild part, it's not even hard. It's natural. Darkness and light were never, never, never enemies. They're dance partners. Integration simply means that you're remembering the choreography. Every breath is a swing between the inhale feminine and the exhale masculine. Every heartbeat is expansion and contraction. Like you've been doing this your whole life, and now you're just doing it consciously. So start small. Take one moment today and ask, where am I abandoning my truth to stay safe? And then do the fucking opposite. Breathe into your belly. Feel your feet. Let your darkness speak. Let your light listen. That is how you become whole, not by chasing transcendence, but by daring to be fully human. The dark feminine doesn't need you to worship her. She needs you to live her, to walk through the world unapologetically embodied and honest and sensual and sovereign and electric. To know that your too muchness is the exact voltage that this planet needs right now. Because when one of us reclaims our power, we all rise a little higher. If you loved this episode, be sure to hit that subscribe button and leave us a glowing review. It helps more beautiful souls like you find this space. Because your words matter, your energy ripples, and every review is like a little spell of support for the Synaptic Soul mission. So until next time, stay curious, stay cosmic, and keep waking the F up.